All right, it certainly appears we are up and running and live. A very good evening to you all from Dubai. Phil Pendlebury with you, and I hope you're having a super mega large day. And of course, for those of you from the Middle East, Assalamu alaikum, marhaban. Good to have you with us too. So, another exploit into Spectralayers 10. And what we're going to do today is going to be a relatively short stream, nice and compact. Three little sections. First one we're going to do is have a quick look at some of the new features in version 10.0.20, or 10.2, I guess, 10.02. The hardware acceleration thing being a prime point to look at, but only quickly. But I do need to show you that in real time because it's quite impressive. Then we're going to fire up Nuendo and go through a practical mix example that I've prepared. It's not a real world kind of thing. I've kind of prepared it just to make it so that we can see, some of the advantages you can get from using Spectralayers 10. And then I've got an interesting little question to answer at the end, which I've prepared something for that as well. So keep firing those questions. I've got Terry with me moderating the chat. So if you've got any questions, he will shout them over or sling them over on a piece of paper, and I'll try to get him to, answer. But of course, if I'm not able to answer those in real time, please feel free in the comments, the routine, and I answer every question I get so far. So that's cool. Okay. So let's move over to Spectralayers 10.020 and get on with it. So I'm really quite excited to show you this. Some of it was revealed in the last version, 10.0.10, and now the developer has added some more of the functions into the 10.020. It's very complicated trying to get these numbers right in my head. So we've got Spectralayers here, and this really applies to those of you who are using a reasonable graphics card. This is the way of the future, using the power of your graphics card to do other things like I am now while I'm streaming, incidentally. OBS, which I use to, do the stream and change the cameras and the video, the settings and so on while we're streaming. And most of the encoding that's being done is being done with my graphics card. So it takes away, any stress on the processor, or most of it. And it works really well. I've got a pretty powerful graphics card. I have to admit, it's an NVIDIA 4090. And I got that because I believe it's the future. I know it's an expensive thing to go into, especially if you're only working in a studio. But I think you'll see that these things are being utilized more and more. And also I use my machine for other things that do require, like video recording and so on. And again, the hardware, the power of the graphics card comes into use there as well. All right, that's enough of that anyway. So I don't want to try and bore you with details, but actually this works even with some of the lower end graphics cards, but I believe it has to be an RTX. We can check up on that in a little while. So we've got Spectralayers open, and like I said, I'm not going to go through every single process here, but I just wanted to show you a couple of things that are pretty impressive, to be honest. So first thing I'm going to do, I've got a song here. Actually, almost forgot headphones on, otherwise I won't be able to hear what's going on. You guys don't need headphones today, though, if you don't want to wear them. We're not doing anything that's, specifically aimed at headphone use, although it might be useful because some of the things we're going to do is a little bit subtle. So it might not come across on regular speakers. Right, camera off. Quick sip of water. So I've got a section of a song here. Let's have a quick. Yeah, okay, there's no need to hear it actually. It's just over 30 seconds long. So in order to kind of test this, what I want to do is we're going to go to Edit, Preferences, and we're going to go down to System, and you'll see here AI Processing Device. Marvelous. So what I'm going to do is actually disable that and just put it back to CPU. I'm going to OK. And then what I'm going to do first is an Unmix Song. So basically, I'm going to do the whole song. I've got that set from previously. So we'll just select everything, high quality, best. Preview doesn't matter because we're not going to preview it. We're just going to unmix the entire song. And let's see how long it takes. Yeah, you can see that. I'm just checking on my screen. All right, so I'm going to click Start, and then we'll hit OK, and let's see roughly how long it takes for 30 seconds. Here we go. And we're done. All right, so approximately 24 seconds, which is not bad. I mean, we've got all the, you know, how this works. We've got all the... We've got all the unmixed stems there. So let's revert that back. And I'm going to go once again over to Preferences. And I'm going to go to System and enable my graphics card as the AI processing device. So once again, it's the same song, 30 odd seconds. We'll get the timer ready so you can see it, reset it back. So 24 seconds, or I'd say a little bit less than that because I pressed the button first. And then we'll go once again to Unmix Song. The same preset, which was high quality. And let's have a quick look at that. So pressing Start and OK. Kaboom. I didn't even have chance. I didn't even have chance to reach over and press my crickets sound. So it's pretty impressive, isn't it? There's a difference of, what was it, 24 versus 4? So there's a 20-second difference there. So if you imagine you're processing a large file, you know, that's pretty impressive. Like I said, I have a 4090. It's a powerful graphics card. It's not an expensive one. It's the cheapest one I could find with a decent amount of memory on it. But still, it's great to have that being used by the DAW applications. Okay, once again, we'll get that off. Let's try one of the other processes. So for this one, I've got, let's see, file, recent, noisy speech. I think you guys know how this works. And what we do it the other way around this time, just so that, you know, you're not waiting for me to mess around changing everything. So this is a noisy speech file. Let's have a quick listen.
Didibinini Bibisa has warned all his loyal subjects that they should never, under any circumstance...
That's the one that had the car in the background. 16, 17 seconds long. So I'm going to go to Unmix Noisy Speech. So it doesn't matter about the preview. And let's start the timer and hit it. So this is with the hardware acceleration on. Oh, well, it was less than a second, I guess, by the time it took me to press that button and come back over. Let's have a quick check, see if it's done its job.
Didibinini Bibisa has warned all his loyal subjects that they should never, under any circumstances, type G.
That's pretty neat. Okay, so let's do the same thing again, and then I'm going to quickly go back over to Preferences and Disable. So let's see how long that would have taken with a normal CPU process. Once again, no need to change anything here. We've got the noisy speech. Unmix Noisy Speech. Let's get the timer ready. Reset. And off we go. Okay, so that was pretty quick. So 4 seconds versus virtually nothing.
Never, under any circumstances, type Google.
And incidentally, all these processes have been improved as well as adding the hardware AI thing. The actual quality of the process has been improved. Right, so I've got one more I wanted to show you, which is actually on the same file, which is the voice denoiser. So let's just have a quick look at that. We'll revert back to how it was. Process. Voice denoiser. The background being noise. Use the background. And once again, let's reset the timer and see how long this one takes. Yeah. Okay, so 6 seconds was it? Something like that. So I will now, let's have a quick listen.
Subjects that they should.
Yeah, there's still a couple of artifacts there, but that's not the point here, actually. We can play around with that another way. So finally, we'll just go back and we'll put this back to the graphics card as the AI processing device. We will revert the file. And this time, voice denoiser. Same preset, blah, blah, blah. Stopwatch ready. Oh. Actually, it actually took longer for me for the actual process to start than it did to actually happen. It took about a second there. So you get the idea, I think, with Unmix Song particularly. And of course, I think one of the things here is, because I'm aware that we're on a live stream, so you don't want to be sitting and listening to this, you know. Okay, that's enough crickets. Stop. It's a live stream. You don't want to be sitting there and just watching a timer. Okay, so probably with the noisy speech thing, yeah, you have to imagine that normally that would be probably 4 or 5 minutes, or maybe even an hour of noisy speech. So huge, huge difference there. Okay, let's move on. So another thing, we don't need the timer anymore. Don't worry, I'm not going to do any more of that. Another thing that's been added is in the Unmix translations. You may have come across this on one of my previous videos, or indeed on another video. But we have a very nice feature called Unmix Transcription, which basically takes a voice and gives you a transcription of the words. But now we've got Hindi, Hebrew, and for those Middle East people, hopefully there's some watching, we have Arabic support as well. So I got some Arabic. Let's see. There it is. Let's have a quick listen.
مرحبا، اسمي فيل بندلبيري، ومرحبا بكم في البث المباشر الخاص بي. مرحبا بك جدا، وأتمنى أن تستمتع بالعرض.
All right, so that's basically an Arabic voice saying, hello, welcome to the live stream, you're welcome, blah, blah, blah. And Phil Pendlebury, which is how Arabic, my name comes across in Arabic. So while we're at it, we're going to go to Unmix Transcription. Actually, I'm not even going to select the voice. You can see there's a bunch of voices here: Hebrew, Arabic, Hindi, Portuguese, Chinese, Russian, Japanese, Spanish, Italian, German, French, and English. I'm not even going to do that. I'm going to leave it on auto. And let's see. Waiting for the process to start. Sometimes you think it hasn't started, which is what we noticed earlier on with the timer. And let's see what the result is here. Well, I can tell you from my kind of very basic understanding of Arabic that that is pretty accurate. I can't tell you how accurate, But you can see down at the bottom here, hopefully, okay, you can see that. We'll try to zoom in, Terry, if we can. Down at the bottom, you can see that each individual word or phrase has been picked up by the translator. And once again, we can select each section with the word and play it. That's my name there, incidentally. And of course, we then have the ability to edit all that, the timings and so on. You can even select and split them up and so on, export them and use them in markers in Nuendo, which we did in one of our previous streams. So I don't need to show you all that again. I've got one more little thing that I'd like to quickly show you before we move into the meat and potatoes, as it were. So, and that would be just the drag and drop features, which, just bear with me one sec and we'll get that sorted. So I've got Nuendo actually running in the background. So let's see, let's just, yeah, okay, we'll leave that as it is. So if I just get this in the right place, and we'll zoom out so that you can see the whole of Nuendo. So remember, we're in the standalone version of Spectralayers, okay? So now you can see the whole screen. Hope it's not too, the whole screen. Hope it's not too fiddly. Let's go back to this song that we unmixed earlier on. You need to be able to see, yeah, okay. So we'll take that drum stem there. That's the drums only. We'll play it. Yep. And you've already been able to do this for a while. So we can just pull the individual bits from Spectralayers into Nuendo, which is really useful. And now what we can do, let's just close all these down. Don't need them anymore, because I want to demonstrate this with a blank, completely blank project. So now you can see I've got some audio here.
Problem. Come on in and I'll show you some of the...
Which we also used, actually, and there's a nice little click there as well, which we can use in a second to get rid of. So what we can do now, got the audio in a container here, in a part, which is useful for editing and so on. Now we can simply drag that over to the standalone Spectralayers.
We're recording lots of voices today. Let's have a look and see what's going on in Studio One.
So you can drag both ways now. That's the point here, which is extremely handy. Of course, being able to use Spectralayers as an ARA or ARA process within Nuendo is what we'll be doing in the mix. But for those odd occasions when you just want to quickly fix something, you don't want to mess around with ARA or ARA, we can now drag and drop both ways, which is super handy. I think that's about it for the, to be honest, I'm just looking at my notes here. There's a whole bunch of other fixes and improvements since version 10, 10.01, 10.010 and 10.020, and it's just improving and improving all the time, and still is doing so. The next version, I'm sure there'll be tons more improvements as well. But if I sit here and read you the list, it's a huge file. I don't think we need to do that. Maybe I can leave a link to it. So let's get in to the meat and potatoes, as it were. We can close down the standalone version of Spectralayers, and I can open up the project that we're going to work in, and we're going to have a look at some practical mixing examples. All right, let's go. Right, so yeah, we can close down Spectralayers standalone completely now. So that's that. Goodbye. And you can see a bit of the project in the back. If I zoom out, you can now see So what we've got here is the project that I've been using on and off throughout these tutorials, and I've just rebound some of the stems specifically for this. It's a song that's unreleased, so I can use it without fear of, you know, any copyright issues and so on at the moment. Who knows when that might change. So I've pulled in the stems. We've got, hopefully you can see, we've got all the drums, most separated, kick, snare, hi-hat, toms, overheads, and then there's a couple of FX and ambience mics. Bass, 2 guitars, a piano, and 2 vocals. And the idea here is to show you some of the things that we can do with the mix that would be pretty awkward without Spectralayers. So let's have a quick listen. I've pulled it in and kind of balanced things roughly. Let's have a quick listen and just make sure.
So now it's unreasonable this and impossible that. There's a problem to solve and the world's in a trap. Wanting progress for all and a fair share of wealth. I plan it.
All right. So I don't want to bore you with listening to my music too much, but it is important to get a rough feel of it. So the first thing I want to look at here is you might have noticed that the bass sounded a bit odd. And if I play the track and move the bass levels.
So now it's unreasonable this and impossible that. There's a problem to solve and the world's in.
I don't know if you can tell, but there's something quite a bit amiss there. And what it is there's some guitars that have bled over onto the bass track. In fact, let's just sort those 2 guitars out while we're at it. I don't think I need to wait. Yeah, we'll do those first.
Wanting progress for all and a fair share of wealth.
I was struggling a bit on that vocal line, I've got to be honest. Right, so now I've moved the guitar, panned the guitars out. Let's have another mess with the bass.
Our planet is fighting itself, fighting for help.
So, especially with headphones on, you can tell that there's something amiss there, because when I'm lifting the bass level up, I'm also finding that the guitar's levels are going up. And you'll have noticed things like that, I'm sure. If you imagine, you know, you get stems sent to you that can be in all sorts of state. Who knows? And you could probably go back and request. Listen to this. That's the bass channel. So we need to sort that out. Now, I was saying earlier on that, you know, there's some things that you can do with Spectralayers that you could also be done with plugins and other things, but this one's a really good example of something that really, as far as I can think of, you can't really do this any other way other than re-requesting the stems. So what we're going to do is have a look at the bass first. Nice bass sound, by the way. Bit of distortion on it and so on. So let's bring Spectralayers into play. We're going to add an ARA instance onto the audio here. You'll see extensions. We'll go to Spectralayers. I always do this. You need to select the part first. All right. I'm going to select Spectralayers. Let it load up. Make sure it's in the center properly so you can see. And now I can zoom in quite easily to that. Let's have a quick listen. So what am I going to do to sort that out? Well, actually, very simple. I'm going to do Unmix Song. We'll just select bass and guitar. There's nothing else to worry about. Guitars are tricky for Spectralayers because, especially like this, because they're two distorted guitars, they're separated, and they cover a lot of area, so they're tricky. But let's see how it copes. Unmix Song, off we go. Okay, so we've got non-unmixed, we've got bass, and we've got guitar. Let's have a listen. That's just the guitars. Okay, so in the non-unmixed section, there's a couple of the little string noises from the bass, which I actually quite like. So what we do is we solo the bass. It's absolutely marvelous. I mean, I know I did this before in one of my other tutorials, and it absolutely blows my mind every time. Not only do we have the bass, but we've got the distortion side from the bass as well. So let's just put that non-unmixed version. And now you're getting some of the noise as well from the bass, the mid-string movements. I suppose we could get rid of those by... I prefer it with. So, the point now, let's not close this. Let's just click the screen itself. We'll zoom back out. So now it's unreasonable, this and impossible. See how the bass fits much better now, as you'd expect it to, seeing as it had guitars in it before. Right, let's carry on. There's a problem to solve, and the world's in a trap. Okay, so what we've done, we're happy with that. We love what Spectralayers has done. Let's see if I can just bring it back. Where is it? There it is. So what we're going to do now, I'm just going to make that permanent. Especially, you could leave it like this and come back to it again at another time. I guess you guys know this, but there will be some people watching that don't. So I guess it's worth explaining. The way that ARA works, or ARA, is this is almost like a plugin. It's almost like a plugin to the individual audio that you're working on. And you could just leave it. You could leave it like that, come back to it later on, and, you know, change the levels or do whatever you feel like doing. Unmute, get rid of that non-unmixed section. But seeing as, especially as we're live streaming, so I don't want to risk anything going wrong, I'm going to kind of put this in place. So what we do, I've just realized, I need to turn on my little, there we are, advanced plugin switcher. That's on now. So that means that when I move my mouse up to the top, you'll get to see the menu, which you didn't see before. So we're going to go to, make sure we've still got that track selected. And what we're going to do is go to Audio, Extensions, Make Extension Permanent. So there we go. So now, if we solo that bass, that's pretty amazing. And you'll also see if we go back to Audio Extensions, you'll see that we can't remove because it's already been removed. So what else? Okay, so we've got the, let's have a... So now it's unreasonable, this and impossible, that. We'll get to some of the other stuff in a minute. But one thing I did notice was there's quite a lot of, excuse me, I just have a quick drink of water. Oh, got a tickle. There's quite a lot of snare in the overhead mics, which is sometimes desirable, obviously, but in this case, I want to show you that, you know, we can deal with that. So that's the overheads. And it's a similar thing to the bass, in fact, that it is affecting the mix, because when I was trying to adjust the snare levels, you know, I was thinking, well, have a listen. There's an impossible that there's a problem to solve. I'm like doing some subtle movements there, and it didn't seem to be making a lot of difference, and that's because there's a heck of a lot of snare in the overheads. And this is something that quite possibly you wouldn't be able to fix by getting them to send you the stems again, because that's how it is already. It's recorded like that, you know? All right, well, let's get the camera off again. And so you know what we're going to do. We're going to go overheads. We've selected the part there. And incidentally, if you want to have a look at it, let's solo that off. So you could say, well, okay, I could go through all those snares and delete them or lower the volumes, but then you're going to miss the hi-hats and crashes that appear where the snares appear. So let's bring Spectralayers into the equation once again. Audio, extensions, Spectralayers. And there's our part. I will zoom in and let's have a listen. Another thing I love about doing this with the ARA process, incidentally, is that we're using Nuendo's, or Cubase, by the way, we're using Nuendo's transport control. So spacebar, you know, there's no fiddling about with separate transport buttons, which is really handy. Right, let's crack on, because I'm taking too long with this, I know. So we're going to go to Unmix Drums. Here we are. I'm not going to bother with preview, so we'll just click. And right, let's see what we've got. Yeah, okay, that's nice. There's a kick. The toms have actually been recognized as a kick, because I was wondering about that too, because they're lower end. So let's just hear those on their own. Yeah, there's not much of them. And the snare. And let's see, have we got? Actually, you know, we're live, aren't we? So let's just listen to it in the mix and see. All right. Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Probably could have worked on that one a bit better. But it did the job for me. At least now I can adjust the snare level without, you know, worrying too much about there being snare in the overhead mics. Let's move on anyway. Right, so the next thing, we've got the snare drum here. Let's close the Spectralayers down. And I like the sound of that reverb. Like I think I might have mentioned already, but if you imagine that these are literally just stems, there's no effects involved. I've got a room here on the send, which is for something I'll show you in a few minutes. And I noticed that there's no reverb on the toms for some reason. So let's zoom out. And I'm going to go to extensions again, Spectralayers, and there's our snare. And zoom back in again. So what I want to do here is see if I can grab that reverb signature, which we do with Process, Reverb Match. I'm not going to worry about any individual bits. I just select the whole thing, just register it. You can see that it's given us a kind of, actually, let's put that over to 100%. Okay, so we've registered the reverb from the snare here. And you can see that since I added the toms, they're now here under layers. What I'm going to do now is just mute that snare off. We've still got the signature. And let's just apply. And how does that come across? Hey, that's a good result, right? So, wow, very impressive. I mean, okay, there's only 3 little toms. So now, if we go back and just make that permanent, again, extensions permanent. Let's have a listen to the tom track. There's some more there. That's stunning. That's stunning. And of course, because we didn't change the snare, we just registered the reverb from it. I'm going to select that track. I'm going to go, let's zoom back out so you can see the whole thing. Zoom back out, up to audio, extensions, and I'm just going to remove the extension this time. So removed it, so it's not doing anything. So now if we have a listen to all of the drums together, got a folder. Let's find the tom fill. Very good, very good. And that, of course, appears in the tom channel itself with that reverb. There it comes. Excellent stuff. All right. So I think we've sorted out, I mean, we've not gone into bussing them and putting compression over and all that, but we've sorted out the little niggles that were bothering me with the drums and the bass. So the next thing, let's have a look. We've only got a couple more things really to do here, but when we get to the vocal bit, you'll see some interesting features. So next thing I wanted to look at was the guitars. So this was part of a huge track with orchestra. You know, it had a whole lot of stuff. You've heard bits of it, like I said earlier on, in other streams and other videos. But so listening to these 2 guitars. They're quite nice, but I felt because this track is a little bit more cut down in the overall kind of context, that I could probably do with getting rid of a little bit of the distortion. And once again, this is a scenario, all right? So it's a hypothetical scenario. Bearing in mind that if you'd been sent these stems like this, well, again, you could write back and say, you know, are you using a plugin? No, it was recorded like that with a Marshall, whatever. So there's nothing you can do. So let's see what Spectralayers can do with my guitars. We'll pick one and have a quick listen. All right, let's put it into the center just while we're working on it. And I'm going to add a Spectralayers process to that. And when I do that, we will then zoom in. Need to select the part. Thought I had. There we are. There we are. Okay. So, oh, interesting, gray. So what we'll do now, we just zoom back into Spectralayers itself. And if you want to see that, you know, I always like how the 3D view looks. So what we're going to do with this is unmix. Let's see, what could we use? Maybe components. Yeah. So we'll stick with, yeah, tonal. Is going to be the preview. We'll make it non-destructive for the time being. We did experiment with that last time, and I couldn't tell a lot of difference, but possibly there is, and possibly it's explained in more detail in the manual. So let's just process that guitar and see what we get. Right, listen. Now, there's a lot of artifacts there, isn't there? So what I would be tempted to do there would be because I don't want to mute that noise altogether, because that's the bit I want to get lower down. You can hear it just sounds like a huge fuzz box. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to duplicate this track. All right, so that one, I'm going to remove the Spectralayers process from. So we've got the second guitar there. So let's go back to the one we were working on. And you know what I'm going to do here? I'm just going to solo the other two parts. All right. And then we're going to make that permanent. I need to select, make sure it's selected. Yeah, we'll make it a new version. Okay. So let's quickly listen to that, make sure it's done what we wanted it to do. And then on the duplicated one, I've done this a little bit of a long-winded way, really, haven't I? You can see what I'm going to do here. This one we're going to use for only the noise. So we're going to make that permanent. I always miss that. Make it permanent. And so now we've got basically the whole guitar, but in 2 separate tracks. And that's the distorted area there. So let's now try and just pull off some of that. That's all right, actually. Okay, so we're going to repeat that process now, and in case I made it look a bit overly complex just now, so let's do it a little bit easier this time. So we'll duplicate the track first. First thing I'm going to do is select this is the right-hand guitar now. First thing I'm going to do is once again go to Extensions and Spectralayers, and then Unmix Components. Listen. Whoops, got to solo it. Mute the noise. Audio extensions, make permanent, new version. And then we'll listen to the other copy. We're going to Extensions, Spectralayers. Again, we're going to unmix components. And this time we'll mute everything else except the noise. And make it permanent. So now we've got control over the noise and the guitars on both sections. Let's have a quick listen to that. So now Now, this is not something, I guess, that you would normally worry too much about. On top of which, probably it would have been idea to group the 2 guitars and bounce them as a stereo pair first, and then deal with that. But I think the point with a lot of this stuff is how it sounds in the mix, right? You can go clinical, don't get me wrong. When you're dealing with sound design and speech and so on, you can go super, super clinical with some things. But for me, in this particular thing, I wanted the overall result. Let's have a listen. Progress for all, and a black share of wealth. Our planet is fighting itself, fighting for health. Yeah. So now it's unreasonable this and impossible that. Okay, I think we'll move on to the final little section. that I wanted to show you, and this one would be interesting to see, I can tell you, and it's to do with the vocals. So we've got two kind of double track vocal parts. Have a quick listen. Once again, I've just added a little bit of room to the cleaner version of the guitars there. But there's no reverbs or anything on anything else other than what was baked into the stems. So here's the vocal.
So now it's unreasonable this and impossible that.
So, well, that sounds a bit weird.
There's a problem to solve, and the world's in a trap.
Okay, what a mess. So apart from my not very precise double tracking, which actually was done deliberately, I wanted it to sound a bit messy. And there's quite a bit of processing already happened on those vocals. There's actually some saturation and bits and bats. But let's have a final listen to those two vocal stems separately. Here's one.
And the world's in a trap, wanting progress for all.
So you can hear there, first of all, there's an AC on.
And affection.
That must have been recorded in someone's bedroom in a hot country.
Share of wealth.
Just in case you can't hear that, let's jack up the level.
A planet.
Let's find a bit where there's no vocal. All right, so that's that. And it's dry as a bone.
So now it's unreasonable this and
But it's actually quite a decent mic sound compared to this one.
impossible that. There's a problem to solve.
Which has a reverb baked into it, but I prefer the mic sound of that one. So we're going to sort those vocals out using Spectralayers. So first of all, let's get rid of that AC noise.
And the world's in a trap.
So there we are. There's the vocal. I will zoom in. And we'll go to audio once again. We'll go to extensions and Spectralayers. Make sure we've got the right part. It should be dry.
So now it's unreasonable this and impossible that. There's a problem.
So you can see the AC noise there. You can see, or whatever it is. Right. So there's a couple of ways we could deal with this. We could use the voice denoiser, which is there. And we'll set the reduction rate to 100%. We don't need to preview because, again, we're live, so I just want to get this done as quickly as possible. And let's just apply that. We haven't done anything, haven't changed any settings or anything. And you can immediately see it's gone.
So now it's unreasonable this and impossible that.
And the other way would be noise reduction. And this might actually work quite well with this because we've got that signature. Remember, we were talking previously about sound design and recording on location and so on. Again, a lot of you already know this, but I always figure, well, there might be 50% people already know things, but there might be another 50% that are coming in not knowing, so why not? Point being, always try and capture a background. So if you're recording, even in pop vocals, just try and capture a few seconds of nothing. Certainly, if you're on location, try and capture a good amount of background noise, because you never know, you might be able to use it somewhere. Maybe if the actor has come into the studio and you've got a super dry vocal and you want some of that background to make it sound more realistic, or you may be able to use it like I'm about to do here. So we've selected a little bit of the noise. We'll play it. And I'm going to register the noise. And I'm going to deselect and apply. And once again,
there's a problem to solve, and the world's in a trap.
That's pretty impressive. So what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to do it one more time with the voice denoiser. But this time I'm not going to make I'm going to take the ratio down a little bit, just to try and make sure that a little tiny bit of noise won't go amiss. But just to try and make sure we've got as much of the vocal.
There's a problem to solve, and the world's in a trap.
That's lovely. So we've got, first of all, we've got our voice denoised. That's great. So next thing I'm going to do is hop over again to audio, and let's just make that permanent. And let's just check both of those voices again. There's still a little bit of it there.
Progress for all, and a fair share of wealth.
And we could probably put a gate or something on it just to get rid of the rest of that. Now, the next thing is I liked the sound of this one, the one with the noise under it.
Our planet is fighting itself.
So I'm going to grab the first mic audio, the one with the noise under it.
So now it's unreasonable this and impossible that.
So this time we're going to use Match EQ. So what I want to do here, you can see the layer here. We've got the vocal other mic. That's the one that we were talking about. So what I'm going to do now is add the Spectralayers to the vocal bright mic as well. So you can see now we've got the two layers. Here's the noisy one, or not, well, it's not so noisy anymore.
So now it's unreasonable
With the one that we like, the EQ. And here's the other one.
this and impossible that.
So back to the one we like. We're going to go to Process, EQ Match. I'm going to just select the whole track. Like that. And I'm going to hit Register EQ. So that's a pattern of the EQ pattern has been registered. Now I'm going to move over to the other section, which is the bright one. We're going to solo that. And quick listen.
Now it's
I'm going to, let's just maybe not make it a full 100%. Let's make it 80%, 90%. And a quick listen.
unreasonable this.
There you go. It's got rid of all that horrible top end. However, one issue with this, let's play them both.
This and impossible that.
They sound great now. But there's still one more thing. Incidentally, I should point out as well, there's something else I always like to do when I'm doing this, and because we're live, I completely forgot. But when we're messing around with the EQ, copying them, so on, I always like to do a quick normalize before and after, because that way, the signal's staying pretty much as it was. But we forgot. Never mind. So we've got the two vocals. Now, I haven't got a reverb plugin.
There's a problem to
I wonder if we can get that reverb.
solve, and the world's in a trap. Wanting progress for all, and a fair share of wealth.
Always makes me laugh hearing myself. So let's try Reverb Match. Honestly, Reverb Match is not really meant for things quite as sensitive as this, I don't think. It's more about, just what you would call maybe above ambience, but not ambience, because there's an ambience thing as well. So we'll select the whole thing. We'll register the reverb, and there it is. Okay. So that was the reverb one. Now we're going to turn the solo off of that, and we're going to go over to the dry one.
So now it's unreasonable this and impossible that. Reasonable this and impossible that.
Okay, let's try. This is where the normalizing may have helped as well.
So now it's unreasonable this and impossible that.
That's not bad.
There's
Put
a
them both
problem
together.
to solve.
Let's hear them both together.
This and impossible that.
Oh, sorry, I've still got that.
There's a problem to solve, and the world's in a trap.
So that's all right. That's usable. So I'm just going to make those permanent again. Okay, so now Spectralayers is gone. And let's have another little play with those two vocals.
So now it's unreasonable this and impossible that. There's a problem to solve, and the world's in a trap. Wanting progress for all, and a fair share of wealth. Our planet is fighting itself, fighting for help. Yeah. So now it's unreasonable this and impossible that. There's a problem to solve, and the world's in a trap. Wanting progress for all, and a fair share of wealth. Our planet is fighting itself, fighting for help. Yeah. So now it's unreasonable this and impossible that. There's a problem to solve, and the world's in a trap. Wanting progress for all, and a fair share of wealth. Our planet is fighting itself, fighting for help.
Yeah. Result? I think so. And I think with a little bit more time and without the pressures of being live, we could really have, gone into some more finer detail there. However, the whole point of this is to show you how things can be done, not necessarily going to be able to get the best result. And some of the things I've used are very extreme examples, right? And in reality, you're more likely to things would be a little bit more subtle. Right, I have one more little example, which I just ran the track in there, so I wanted you to hear that. And let's just see what we can do with this. So here we have, we've finished with the other thing now. Here we have an acoustic guitar part. It's actually from another song. And again, no need to really listen to it all. Now, that's covered in reverb. Let's take some of this reverb down. In fact, we can turn it off altogether. So, can you hear? We've got horrible squeaky noise there. Now, it's kind of realistic, but on the other hand, when it's got certain processing on, especially if I want to compress it and do stuff with it, that squeak is going to stand out like a sore thumb. So I want to try and use Spectralayers to see if I can see that squeak, because it's underneath an actual musical note. I want to see if I can see it and get rid of it. So I've selected the guitar there. perhaps what I do, just let's have a quick listen again. We'll just get rid of the rest of it, and we'll put the locators round. Now this is a guitar part from a song which is actually released and copyrighted, so hopefully it's not going to get muted. That's why I'm thinking, yeah, okay. So once again, audio, extensions, Spectralayers. And let's have a look. We can resume. And you can see it there. That's the... So let's first of all just do the obvious, which would be similar to cutting it within Nuendo. And I'm just going to make an elliptical selection there. And actually move it a little bit. Let's have a listen. Actually, that was very, honestly, that was a lucky guess. Another listen. Sorry, I've got lost now with my controls here. So maybe we can just delete that and get rid of the selection. That honestly, that was just a guess. I mean, you can see it, I know. Let's put it back how it was. So, first time lucky. It's super, super useful. That particular example there was a real world example. That's exactly what I did. I use a Variax for all my guitar stuff. It's not the best sounding thing in the world, but super practical for the studio. And that means that even the acoustic stuff, I've got a nice acoustic, but for that, you sometimes have this issue because they're electric guitar strings, and also the way I play, of course, you know. So removing those noises is something I have to do quite a lot. Sometimes it's impossible to play a part without getting some kind of finger movement, right? So I think we're done, to be honest. I've got one little thing that I wanted to show you, which is more of a curiosity than anything else. But we can certainly close down Nuendo now. So we'll go back to main camera, and there's a couple of things that I just wanted to say. I hope you're still with us. Thanks for those of you that are, and those of you who are watching later. Thanks ever so much. Unmix Song. I think personally Spectralayers is worth the money just for that feature. And I've actually, I do a lot of writing, I do a lot of original music, but there's a friend of mine, Carl, who writes lyrics, but he's taken on this project of covers. And obviously, in this particular case, because he's a lyric writer, so it's basically all me. And one of the tracks was Bat Out of Hell, which is a monster of a track. I'm sure you know, the original Meatloaf Bat Out of Hell. I have to completely recreate. I wish I could play you it, but I can't because it's not released and so on and so forth. So I have to completely recreate Bat Out of Hell from start to finish with some extra bits, playing all the guitars, the drums, the bass, etc. And then Carl comes in to record his vocal. And one thing that I found an immense help was using Spectralayers. I did an Unmix Song, and I took the original vocal to work with. So basically, I was able to do a tempo map, which was crazy. and build up all my instruments around the original vocal, which even had the female backing vocals, which we also have to do new. And of course, once he comes in to do his vocal, then, I'll get rid of the original. But it's been an immense help. So, you have this thing about Unmix Song. Well, yeah, it's great for karaoke versions because you can get rid of the lead vocal and have a, yeah. And the other thing was there's little bits of bass, for example. And often with covers, I just like to do my own anyway. And in fact, I have changed the drum patterns in a lot of it because they're very random. So I've kind of unified them. But it's still nice to use those individual stems from Unmix Song to give you, what did he do there? Doesn't matter, I'll do my own. But actually, if you do get it accurate, it makes a big difference. I think Spectralayers is marvelous. I know you can tell that. And I know we had the usual live stream IQ drop a few times throughout this one, but I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's made some sense. Don't forget, send me some questions in the comments. If you're watching this later, thanks ever so much for bearing with us as well. Bear in mind it was live. Okay, I think that'll do for now. I'll see you next month. Got some exciting stuff for next month. I'm not going to tell you about it right now, but we will do a little bit closer to the date. All right, all the best, guys. And thanks ever so much for being with us. Thanks, Terry. And time for a glass of water. See you soon, guys. Cheers.